Today, we're going to learn how to effectively onboard B2B lead generation clients. If you're new here, my name is Michael, and this is the fifth or sixth video in a series where I show you how to build a B2B lead generation agency using the same processes and strategies I use to build mine to over $1 million in sales. Now, today we're going to answer quite a few questions about onboarding a client. We're going to answer what the average steps are from the first sales call to the first emails being sent on behalf of the client, the funnel I use to onboard my clients, the questions to ask in order to get the best possible results for your clients, how you can do quality assurance checks to limit liability and make sure everything is smooth, and then also how to set a reasonable timeline with your new client. So let's go ahead and jump into my screen and we'll get started. Now, as a quick recap, we've already answered what a B2B lead generation agency is, how to start when you get your first clients, pricing models, best niches, and now it's time to go over how to onboard. So if you missed any of those previous videos, make sure to check my channel where you will find them and answer those preliminary questions. Now let's go ahead and jump in. The first question here is, what are the average steps from a sales call to the first emails being sent for your actual client? So you've onboarded them and they now have campaigns running. So the first period normally takes 15 to 90 days, but in some cases it takes up to a year or more. And that is a sales cycle. Typically, the smaller a company is, the faster the sales cycle is going to be. Where larger, more bureaucratic organizations have multiple approval points that sometimes take a long time. And in fact, I have closed one Fortune 500 company, and it took me around a year and 3 months to get them to pay. So that 50 to 90 days is variable, because sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a year, but 15 to 90 is pretty typical for a sales cycle. And I do want to emphasize that because a lot of people get into the space and they expect someone to pay right away. When in reality, you need to build a pipeline and you need to be patient because it's going to take a while for that first person to pay likely. And it might be 90 days from having a good meeting where you're saying, hey, this isn't working, but in reality, you just haven't waited. And again, this is why we call it a pipeline. You have a list of people that are in conversation and they close over time. And the longer you've been building that pipeline, if the more people, then the smoother sailing is going to be. So it starts with a sales call. Now, this is not a perfect lineup here. Things do change, but in general, it normally goes to a second call with a proposal. Then there's a time where the client reviews the proposal. Maybe they show it to their boss or their colleagues or their business partner, whatever it may be. You normally have a final logistics call, and then you go to contract and payment. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to make suggestions on a contract, but I will say I recommend having one. And for payment, I use Stripe with simple invoices to send out invoices to the client. So for my actual contracts, I can say I use Jotform Sign. I've had good experience with it. I know some people use DocuSign. I use Jotform for a lot of things already, and I use their contract tool. It's fine, and it gets a job done for me. Now, the next period is 2 to 3 days. That's where we add them to our onboarding funnel, where we collect all their information we're going to use for their campaigns. I'm going to break this all down for you a little bit later on this video. And then we also add them to Slack and introduce them to our team if we have a team. I recommend using Slack for communication. Most modern businesses use it anyway, and even if someone does it, it's pretty simple to use it. Slack also has a bunch of automations and integrations, so you can just make it a very seamless process to work with you. And in terms of my company, I have like a Slack section for clients, for our marketing, for our team, and other things that come up. So it's just all in one central dashboard. I kind of think of it like a control panel for a spaceship, so I definitely recommend using Slack. Now, once you've done that, the next period is going to be 15 to 20 days, which is actually the onboarding of your client. The first step here is going to be the kickoff call. Now, kickoff call, onboarding call, introduction call, whatever you want it to be. This is where you reassure your client it was a good choice to work with you. You tell them what's going to happen next. Normally talk a little bit about strategy, domains, and emails, and some of the first things that will be necessary to get their campaigns live. Now, once I've had that kickoff call, then I will go ahead and send over their domains and emails for approval. And then I will purchase them for a client, or a client will purchase them depending on the arrangement. And we do email warm up. I normally warm up emails for 2 to 3 weeks. Then I will make a strategy with the client. And then after the call, I will summarize it and send it for final approval. Whole idea here is we don't want to waste our time building lists or scripts that the client doesn't use. So I get them to do a written approval. That way, if they change their mind, I have it in writing that they have already approved this and it cannot be changed. From there, I do list building. So for those strategies we built out, which are different segments normally, if you don't know what a segment is, check out my other videos. We go ahead and build Ver lists. We use a variety of tools on this, but we have tutorials on the channel for Find Email, for Million Verifier, for Scrubby, for Apollo, so you can check those out if you don't know how to build lists. From there, I write scripts, gather the clients' do not contact list, which is a list of companies they don't want to reach out to. These are normally current clients, past clients, people in their sales pipeline, maybe just people they don't like, people they just don't want to email. And then I get final approval on their script, list, and do not contact. Whole idea from this is reducing liability. And then campaigns are launched. So in reality, if you're factoring in how long does it take from first doing outreach to getting meetings, to getting your first calls, to getting your first clients, to sending emails, it's a lot longer than people think. There are some stories of people starting for agencies and getting clients the next day. I would say pretty typical is probably 100, 120 days till the point where your client's signed and sending emails. It is slower to get started because you don't have a pipeline and you don't have data to base things off. But that is the process that I do from first call until the first email set. Now, the second question we're going to answer here is what is the funnel I use to actually onboard these clients? So that gives you kind of a high level overview of the steps. But what about the actual funnel? Now, let's first define a funnel. A funnel, an onboarding form, an intake form, these all mean basically the same things. A question set that you bring your clients through to get as much information as you need about their business to get them the best results. So I'll talk about first the flow, and then second we'll talk about the questions I actually ask people, but we're going to separate those two. So starting with the flow. Now, first off, where do I actually put this flow? Now, I do this on my website. I have custom URLs that guide to different pages. It looks really great. It's branded. It's professional. You don't need to start there. A very minimal viable product would be Google Form. More intermediate, maybe Jot Form just looks a little bit better. You can do some branding. It's just a little bit less clunky. So let's go through this. I start with a welcome video. The whole idea here is to thank them for trusting me and to reconfirm that it was a good decision to work with me. Once I've done that welcome video, I have a video that explains what happens next and sets expectations. My goal here is to keep the clients in the loop and understanding. A lot of times when a client's upset, it comes down to a lack of communication, where you can fix this by over communicating and setting clear steps and timeline. From there, I ask them questions about their business, and we're gonna go over these in the next section. Then I ask them questions about their case studies and collect those. Sometimes they already have these on their website or in a pitch deck, but a lot of times I just have them fill it out and I give them a template so it's easy. From there, I send them a kickoff calendar link, which they can book. And then finally, I get approvals and permissions where I have people check things off just to reduce liability and make sure that we're entirely clear. Now, this is probably going to be the most important part of this video. This is the questions that I ask to get my clients the best possible results. Now, it's really important here that people will often be lazy when it comes to filling out these forms, and they'll only give you a sentence or a bullet point or two. I try to emphasize to them when I send this form that I can only write copy as good as my understanding of their business. So I make sure to emphasize that before I send them this onboarding form with questions. And then also on the kickoff call or strategy call, I'm going through these and expanding upon them, making sure I really understand. It's nearly impossible to get results for a client when you don't understand their business, so this is going to be critical. Now, there's a few different question sets I go through. It's 5 in total. Actually, I'm just going to correct this because it says 4. It's 5. And let's go ahead and go through them. The first one is just general admin questions. Their email, their full name, their company name, their website, social media links, where they're located, their rep names, if there's going to be one rep, multiple reps, also the time zone of those reps. When I say rep, I mean sales reps, and then photo or photos, including their reps. For photos, I only want headshots looking at the camera, no hats, glasses, lifestyle photos, a smiling photo, yes, smiling, looking at the camera. That's the only thing I'll accept. Then question set 2 is going to be about their business. So their elevator pitch, essentially, what is it that you do in 2 to 3 sentences? Then I have them break down their different ideal customer personas. So who do you want to target? Ideally 2 to 3, sometimes more if they have it. A lot of times companies will already have these in internal resources for their sales team. So if they do have those, I'll go ahead and ask them for that and they can just avoid filling it out, just link it there. Personas or company types to avoid. 5 to 10 links to their ideal customer websites. And then I also add these to their lead list because occasionally one will book a call and it makes them super happy. The target locations based on country, states, and sometimes cities. The pain points of our ideal customer persona, so whatever main pains they're solving. Common objections, service and product, unique selling points, what are the deliverables, how do they actually deliver those deliverables, like what is the timeline, and what are the pain and points specific to the titles they target. So if they target marketing and sales and HR, well, how do the pain points and goals vary from marketing, sales, and HR? And then finally, their brand story. Sometimes you'll find some cool things that are relatable there you can work into the script. So this is a lot of information, but I truly use it all to write my client the best script and the best strategy possible. Now, question set number 3 is about them. Where are they born and raised? Where are they living? And what are their personal interests? Again, I'm looking at ways I can tie in their personal interests to campaigns, and I'll also have them fill this out for their reps. Now, if you're curious how do you use personal interests, check out my video I did on strategy where I answer that. It's really interesting. Now, question set number 4 is your case studies. I have a basic form that they can either submit their existing case studies in a pitch deck, their website, or if they haven't done that, they can fill them out in a template that I've created. And the final section is permissions. Approval to spin text or scripts, understanding that some will look a little bit different. If you don't know what spin text is, video on my channel. Approval for domain and email purchase, a general understanding of liability checkbox in addition to the contract and in addition to appointment setting, expectation setting on the onboarding, and then also permission to use their name in my own marketing, because I will put their company name on my website as someone I work with to build social proof. But if I don't want that, they can check that box. Around 75% of people generally allow me, 25% don't, and then later normally they do. Now, that is the questions I ask people. Now, moving on here, quality assurance checks. These are the things that are less fun, but if you're serious about business, you need to think about them. So the first one is a do not contact list. I always make sure I get it from them, it's formatted correctly, and I have another approval even after they give it to me. I also get approval on domain and email, so I'm not buying any domains or emails I don't want me to buy, especially if larger companies are often very sensitive to this. The third thing is strategy on a campaign, some approval. So the whole idea there is here's the targets we're going after, here's the offers, do you want that? The whole idea here is I don't want to waste time and money building a list, script, and strategy that the client's not going to use. Now, if you're talking to someone who's not the final decision maker, make sure they have approval from that final decision maker or have his go ahead before you take your time and effort. Then we have list approval of the list I build, scripts approval, all the scripts I built, and then if I am doing appointment setting, I have approval on the appointment setting templates. The whole idea here is just trying to reduce my liability and make sure that the journey of them starting their campaigns is as seamless and without error as possible. And the final part here is setting a reasonable time frame. So I tell people day 1 to 15 is their setup. Day 15 to 45 is their initial test where some things will not work at all, some things will work great. We're just trying to figure out what gets traction. And this is where their first leads will come in. Day 45 to 90 is where cold email is going to be validated. We've sent enough emails that we know what is our response rate going to be, what is our lead rate, what is our book call rate, what is our close rate. And this is where you know, does cold email work well enough to continue or not? Most of your drop off for clients will be in this first 90 days because there's some people where maybe they don't have product market fit or they're a startup or they're still in growth phase. And the answer might be cold email won't work for them or their business just isn't viable for any outreach. So you should have leads be consistent. Now, consistent either bad or good. It just should be consistent with a trend. And then after 90 days, cold emails have been validated. This is where you're scaling your best campaigns and it gets really fun, to be honest. And it's also where you need to continue to do new copy and strategies to avoid copy fatigue, where our copy gets flagged from being too similar for too long. And there you have it. That's how I onboard clients. In the next video, we're going to talk about service delivery, so ongoing management. And then the video after that, we'll talk about how to scale, because I've done this for a long time. We've worked with well over 300 businesses, over $1 million in revenue, and have a lot of things to share there in terms of how you can scale, stay profitable, and retain your sanity. Now, if you do want help growing a B2B lead gen agency, there is a link in the description to work one-on-one with me. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.